All right, let's just jump right into this explainer. We are going to unpack a massive biological cold case, exactly how life on Earth has changed over millions of years. Think of this as your grade 10 science masterclass. We're going to examine the clues left behind in solid rock, hiding in our DNA, and, believe it or not, right inside our very own bodies, to figure out how the natural world came to be. Okay, quick question. Do you ever wish you had a tail? I know, it sounds completely ridiculous. But seriously, think about how incredibly useful that would be. You could use it to swing your way to school or hold an umbrella while totally keeping your hands free.
Well, the crazy part is you actually did have a tail once. Seriously. Back before you were even born, when you were just an early-stage embryo, you had a very distinct tail-like structure. As you grew, those cells shifted and eventually fused together to become your tailbone, the coccyx, right at the base of your spine. By the time you were just an 8-week-old embryo, that tail was completely gone.
So why bring up this vanishing tail? Because it's actually one tiny, fascinating piece of evidence for a much larger, frankly, magnificent process: evolution. Simply put, evolution is the change in inherited traits over successive generations in populations of organisms. It is the literal mechanism that allows living things to adapt to their surroundings and survive over huge stretches of time. To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to put on our detective hats and step through 5 massive pillars of evidence: the fossil record, biogeography, anatomical structures, embryology, and genetics. Let's get into it. All right, clue number 1, decoding the fossil record. This is where we look at the physical traces of extinct organisms locked away in sedimentary rock for millions of years. So scientists generally rely on 2 main types of fossils here. First, you've got imprints. Think of these like a shallow footprint left in the mud. It's an external mold with little to no actual organic material left. Then you have compressions. These are amazing because they actually preserve the original plant or animal tissues, meaning there's way more organic material intact. And to figure out exactly how old these clues are, scientists use relative dating, basically comparing rock layers, and radiometric dating, which uses radioactive isotopes, specifically carbon-14, to get a super accurate age. To put that into perspective, look at how we can track the modern whale. The fossil record gives us a literal timeline. Starting way back over 41 million years ago, we have the Pachycetus. Get this, it was a whale ancestor that actually walked on land with 4 legs. Then, over millions of years, we see the semi-aquatic Rhasetus. Fast forward to the Dorodon, which was fully aquatic but still had these tiny shrunken hind limbs. All the way up to the Balaenea, the modern whale we know today. We can even look at the fossilized skulls and watch the nostrils literally migrate from the tip of the snout to the top of the head to become a blowhole. Mind-blowing, right? And every so often, scientists hit the jackpot with what we call transitional fossils. These are the missing links that bridge the gap between 2 totally different groups of animals. A super famous example is the Archaeopteryx. It's definitive proof of one species transitioning into another because it has bird features like feathers, but at the exact same time, it's rocking reptile features: teeth, claws, and a long, bony tail. Moving right along to pillar number 2, biogeography and distribution. This is where we look at where animals actually live on our planet. Basically, biogeography proves that organisms evolve by adapting to the super specific climates and food sources of their isolated environments. Like, why are kangaroos only hopping around in Australia? Geographic isolation. Or look at the incredible Philippine eagle, completely adapted to its very specific local ecosystem. Meanwhile, camels absolutely thrive in the desert, but you'll never find one naturally living on a tropical island. It's a harsh rule of nature. Species distribute and adapt based on strict local survival demands, or they just don't survive at all. Okay, piece of evidence number 3. Let's zoom back in on ourselves and compare our physical anatomy to other animals. When we compare structures, there are 2 key concepts you really need to nail down: homologous and analogous structures. Homologous structures, think a human arm, a whale flipper, and a bat wing, all have the exact same basic internal bone structure. I'm talking the humerus, radius, ulna, carpals. Even though we use them for totally different things like grasping, swimming, or flying, this proves we share a common ancestor through what's called divergent evolution. And analogous structures are the exact opposite. A bat wing and a bug wing are both used for flying, right? Same function. But their internal structures and origins are entirely different. That is convergent evolution, where different animals adapt in similar ways to survive similar environments. And then we have vestigial structures. This is basically evolutionary baggage. Think about your wisdom teeth, or your appendix, or those weird little external ear muscles that let our ancient ancestors swivel their ears toward danger. And yep, that tailbone we talked about earlier. These were absolutely crucial for our ancestors, but they've completely shrunk down and are basically useless to modern humans today. Which brings us to Pillar 4, embryology and development, taking us way back to the very beginning of an animal's life cycle. It is wild to think about, but early embryos of completely different species, I'm talking fish, elephants, humans, share identical structural features that eventually morph into completely different body parts. For instance, early on, vertebrate embryos have these things on their necks called pharyngeal arches. In a fish, those turn into gills. But in mammals, like humans and elephants, those exact same starting structures shift and form the bones of our jaws and our ears. No way, right? By tracking these developmental steps, scientists spot hidden features that you'd never see once the animal is born. Look at the early stage embryos of a human, a pig, and a turtle side by side. They look practically identical. They all have shared tails and little gill slits. It's only in the middle and mature stages that they start to highly specialize. That shared early starting line is a massive, flashing neon sign pointing to a common ancestor. All right, our fifth and final pillar. The most modern, undeniable proof we have, our genetic code. We know that even a tiny change, a single insertion, deletion, or substitution in our DNA can cause huge mutations. And yet, statistically, despite all the wild complexity of life on Earth, human beings share an unbelievable 98.8% of our DNA with chimpanzees. I mean, if you look at the amino acid sequence for hemoglobin, humans and chimps have the exact same sequence. Just think about that. A tiny 1.2% sliver of a difference accounts for literally every single trait that separates you from a chimpanzee. Seeing this overlap visually really drives home that the more similar the DNA, the closer the family relationship. It proves exactly how closely related we are to other primates on a microscopic molecular level. And if we zoom in even further at ourselves, humans have exactly 46 chromosomes, which is 23 pairs. Chimpanzees, on the other hand, have 48. That super close map strongly hints that somewhere along the line, a chromosomal fusion likely happened in the human lineage, permanently linking our biological family trees together. Okay, let's bring it all home. Section 6, the big picture recap. Let's pull all these massive scientific concepts together. As science keeps digging up new clues, the data we already have tells a crystal clear story. It really is like a giant puzzle. Every single piece of evidence we've explored today snaps perfectly into place to support one single, powerful reality. Life on Earth has changed over time. So just to quickly recap, whether we're digging deep underground for fossils to trace physical changes, mapping out biogeography to see how environments force survival, comparing our anatomical bone structures, uncovering the hidden similarities in our embryology, or literally reading the undeniable truth in our DNA, all 5 of these pillars absolutely point to the same undeniable truth of evolution. So I'm going to leave you with this to chew on, knowing that your very own body, your DNA, your jawbone, your weird little tailbone, is literally carrying around millions of years of evolutionary history. How does that change how you see your connection to the natural world? You aren't just living in nature, you are a direct product of millions of years of its deep history. And honestly, that is just an incredibly cool thing to carry around with you every single day. Keep asking questions, keep digging, and I'll see you in the next masterclass.